Story 1. I matched with her on a Tuesday night. 28, book lover. New to my city. The chat was normal. No weird energy. We moved to text by Thursday. She suggested I swing by her place after my late shift for one drink and a movie. I said yes because it felt easy. That was my first mistake. It was 11:40 p.m. when I parked outside her apartment complex. Old brick, narrow hallways, a single camera over the front door with a red light that didn't blink. She buzzed me in. The hall smelled like mildew and someone's takeout. Her door was at the end on the right. She opened before I knocked, like she'd been standing there listening. She looked like her photos, but quieter. Bare feet. Oversized sweater. "Hey," she said. "You found it." Her smile didn't touch her eyes. Inside, the place was almost staged. Couch, small TV, a candle burning, but no other clutter. On the counter sat 2 tumblers of whiskey already poured. "I hope Rye's okay," she said. "I thought you'd be thirsty after the drive." I don't drink pre-poured anything, so I said, "Mind if I get water first?" She said, "Sure, glasses are in the cabinet," then pointed to the hallway. That's when I noticed something. There was no kitchen tap running, no ice tray out, but both drinks had the same melt level. How long had they been sitting there? I took water, didn't touch the whiskey, and we headed to the couch. The door to what I assumed was her bedroom was closed and locked from the outside. It had one of those hotel-style chain locks installed backward. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. But then I heard one small scratch from the other side of that door, like a dog's paw. She saw me look and said, "My building has a rescue dog we're fostering. He hates men. Don't worry." We watched exactly 3 minutes of a horror movie before she stood, walked to the counter and said, "Bathroom's down there if you need it." It sounded like a suggestion, not a courtesy. My stomach went tight, so I got up and went, but I didn't close the door all the way. In the mirror, I could see the living room reflection. She lifted my tumbler, swirled it, and tilted her head like she was checking the angle of the glass. Then she set it down and looked toward the bedroom door. She waited. Stillness. That's when I heard the second sound from behind the locked door. Not a scratch. A shoe scuff. I turned off the bathroom light and stood still. No fan hum. No other apartment noise. Just that small, deliberate shift. And then a whisper, like someone reminding another person to wait. I walked out and said, "I should head home." "Work at 6, she acted surprised, then relaxed too quickly. "At least take your drink," she said, holding the glass to me like we'd be rude to leave it. It smelled sweet, like overripe fruit, not rye. "I'll pass," I said, and I grabbed my coat. She followed me to the door. "I can walk you out," she offered. "The hallway lights are weird sometimes." Her face had that empty smile again. I opened the door and stepped into the hall. That's when I saw the metal exit door by the stairwell wedge, open with a plastic bag. Someone could stand there and never be on camera. I walked. Not fast enough to look like I was running, but fast enough. I heard her bare footsteps behind me and then stop. Then a single metal click from her apartment lock. I knew whoever was inside was free to move again. I got in my car, drove around the block, parked, and called the non-emergency police line. I gave the address and told them what I heard. "We can do a welfare check," the dispatcher said. "Stay put." I waited 2 blocks away where I could see the front door. 2 officers arrived, knocked, spoke to someone. After a few minutes, the door opened wider and a young guy walked out, hoodie up, hands in pockets. He looked around like he was checking for someone. The officers asked him to sit on the stairs. He didn't argue. They questioned me later in my car. I didn't drink anything. Nothing happened. I left on my own. I kept saying, "I just had a bad feeling." One officer said quietly, "You did the right thing." We've had a few robbery setups like this. Guy arrives, gets comfortable. 2 others come out of a room. He didn't say more, but I caught the look he gave his partner. I blocked her on everything. The next morning, her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. The photo she used has never appeared again. I still think about that door with the chain on the outside. What were they used to keeping in there? And how many men finished their drinks before they noticed it? Story 2. We met on a Sunday, matched by lunch, coffee by 5 p.m. She said she'd just moved to my neighborhood for grad school. Quiet, a little awkward, but funny in a dry way. We went on 2 more dates that week. Everything moved fast because it was easy. On the 3rd date, she noticed my phone's lock screen lighting up with my building's smart lock app. "Those things are so convenient," she said, smiling. "We used one in my old place." It felt like nothing. On Friday, I'd left for a friend's wedding an hour out of town. I turned off lights, watered my plant, and texted her I'd be back late. She sent a heart and said, "Have fun." I didn't post anything public. I don't tag locations. I'm careful. I still don't know how she knew the exact time I left. Maybe from our messages, maybe from watching. I only know what I saw on my camera the next morning. My building's hallway cam is cheap and lags. But at 2:13 a.m., it caught her standing outside my door wearing a hoodie and carrying a canvas tote. She typed on my keypad, fast, like she knew it. It didn't open. She tried again, longer this time. Then the lock flashed green and the door opened. She looked straight at the camera once before going in. No smile. Just that blank look people have when they're about to do something they decided on days ago. I didn't see the motion alert until morning because my phone was on Do Not Disturb. When I opened it, I felt that cold fall in my stomach. I called my neighbor, a guy across the hall who works nights. He checked my door, said it was closed. Then he put his phone through the mail slot and recorded a quick sweep. My bedroom drawers were open. The bathroom mirror was fogged like someone had showered. On my kitchen counter, a mug with lipstick prints and my spare key tray empty. I hadn't told anyone where I keep that tray. I left the reception and drove home. She was gone, but she wasn't. I could feel it. It's like when you know someone sat in your chair because it tilts different. My phone charger was moved to the left side. A water bottle I keep on the floor near my bed was upright by the wall. Inside my bathroom, trash was a torn receipt from a hardware store 2 streets over. Timestamp, 6:42 p.m. The line item, key duplication, RFID fob copy. Quantity, 1. I changed the code, called building management, and filed the report. The officer asked the question I was dreading. Did you ever show her the app? I hadn't. Not directly. But the first time she came over, I let her in via the app while we were in the lobby, and I set the code in front of her. I didn't think about angles, reflections, or how fast some people can memorize a sequence when they want to. The next night, she texted, "I left my scarf there. Can I swing by?" I said, "You were here last night at 2 a.m. How did you get in?" She replied instantly, "You gave me a key, remember?" I hadn't. She sent a photo of my spare fob on her palm. "You said it was fine," she added, like we'd had a whole conversation I'd forgotten. My chest felt tight. I told her we were done and that I'd reported the entry. She sent 3 dots, then nothing. I blocked her. 2 days later, management emailed the building. "Please be aware, an unknown individual may be attempting entry using cloned fobs. Replace codes. Don't buzz strangers." They never wrote her name because they didn't have one. The profile was deleted. The phone number stopped working. My neighbor said he saw her again that week, standing on the sidewalk across from our door, looking at the keypad like she was waiting for it to forget that we changed it. I installed a deadbolt that isn't smart. I keep a wooden dowel in my sliding window track. I turned off the auto-unlock geo-fence on my phone. People think the scary part is that she got in. It isn't. It's how normal she made it sound after, as if I'd invited it. As if a no could be rewritten by a different version of the story. "You said it was fine." Story 3. I matched with Ava right before New Year's. She wanted low-key, coffee and a walk. We met at a strip mall cafe at 8:30 p.m. because I was late at work. She looked exactly like her pictures. Navy coat, boots, dark hair pulled back. We talked about boring stuff. Old roommates, travel, a bad haircut I once got. At 9:45 she said, "I parked way in the back. The front spots were full earlier. Can you walk me to my car?" Of course I said yes. The lot was one of those long, dim ones with only 2 tall lights working. Patches of shadow between islands of glow. There were a decent number of cars near the storefronts, but the far end had maybe 3. I kept the conversation going, weather, the weird mural on the laundromat next door, because the quiet felt heavy. She pointed to a black sedan. "That one," she said. We reached it. She unlocked it, tossed her bag in the front seat, then turned and hugged me. It was quick and a little stiff. Then she said, I left my phone inside. Will you wait here? I'll be like 2 minutes." Before I could say anything, she jogged back toward the cafe. I leaned on the passenger side and looked around. Across from me, in the next row over, a white van was parked facing us. Engine off, no logos. The windshield was so dark I couldn't see inside. The front tires were turned sharply toward our row, even though there was no reason to angle them like that. I felt my shoulders tighten. I told myself I was being jumpy. 1 minute passed. 2. I checked the cafe door. She hadn't come out. I texted, "All good?" The message didn't deliver. I called. Straight to voicemail. Maybe no service. Brick building, back room, whatever. I looked at the van again. A tiny breath of condensation appeared low on the glass. Someone was inside, exhaling. Then it cleared like whoever it was held their breath. I decided to move. I walked around to the driver's side of her sedan and crouched like I was checking a tire. From that angle, I could see under the van 2 pairs of feet. One on the driver's side, boots. Another behind the sliding door, sneakers, slightly pigeon-toed. The van sat too high to hide feet unless you knew to look. They were waiting for someone to open this car and sit down. I stood, stretched like I was just cracking my back, and hit the sedan's lock button on the handle so it clicked loud. I pulled on the door handle hard enough to make it rattle like I was getting in, then walked away quickly toward the more populated part of the lot. Behind me, I heard the van's engine turn over, a soft cough. I didn't look back. I walked into the convenience store and stood behind a shelf of laundry detergent where I could see the lot through the window's reflection. The van crept forward into my row, then paused by the sedan. The sliding door cracked open 2 inches, and then shut. The van idled another 10 seconds, pulled out, and drifted toward the exit like it had lost interest. I called the cafe. "Is Ava there?" The barista said, "Who?" I described her coat. No one like that came back in. I thanked him and hung up. I texted Ava again and saw the gray question mark, number no longer in service. I walked to the cafe anyway because I needed to feel stupid rather than scared. She wasn't there. The manager said, "We close in 5, like he wanted me gone. I moved my car to the front row where the lights were strongest and where a camera sign hung, even if it was fake. Then I called the police and asked if they could swing by. "We'll send a unit," the dispatcher said. An officer arrived 10 minutes later. I pointed out the sedan, the van's spot, the angle of the tires. He listened, patient. He said they'd had a string of 2 car robberies where the target gets boxed in or yanked into a sliding door. "Usually it's after a bar," he said, "but apps make it easier. Someone walks you to your car and then disappears." I gave Ava's profile details. By midnight, it was deleted. The officer said he'd file a report and add the plate I'd snapped as the van rolled by, half covered with a plastic shield. "Be careful with back rows," he said before leaving. "Park near cars, near returns, near anything that forces a van to maneuver. They don't like having to back up twice." I sat in my locked car for a minute and felt the adrenaline turn to anger. Not at them. At how normal the setup felt until the end. A walk to a car. A quick hug. An excuse to leave you in the one spot where help is farthest away. When people ask why I still use dating apps, I say, I'm careful. But the truth is, careful often means noticing things you can't prove and walking away anyway. People think that's paranoia. It isn't. It's how you go home. I matched with her on a Friday night, just before closing time at the bar near my place. She said she was headed there too, so we met in person within an hour of matching. She was friendly, soft-spoken, wearing a denim jacket and a messy bun that made her look unassuming. We had one drink, talked about travel, nothing deep. At 12:30 a.m., she said her ride was almost there and asked if I wanted to share since we lived in the same direction. I hesitated, then agreed. She pointed outside. A black Toyota Camry idled at the curb, hazards blinking. No ride-share sticker, but she said her app had private driver mode. I didn't even know that was a thing. We climbed in. The driver didn't turn around. No greeting. Just, "You guys going downtown, right?" His tone was flat, like he already knew. My phone buzzed with a notification. Trip started, even though I hadn't requested one. That should have been impossible. I looked closer. It wasn't my Uber app. It was a text with a fake interface image and a random number. The driver took a left instead of right. The girl glanced at him, then at me, and said casually, "Shortcut." My gut twisted. I opened Google Maps discreetly. We were headed toward an industrial district near the river, not downtown. I whispered, "Where are we going?" She smiled slightly, too calm, and said, He knows a faster way. My throat went dry. I said I needed to use the restroom and asked him to stop at a gas station ahead. He kept driving. I raised my voice. "Stop the car." He didn't. She touched my arm lightly and said, "Relax." That single word, relax, snapped everything into focus. I yanked the handle. Door locked. Child safety. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might stall my brain. I jammed the unlock button repeatedly. Nothing. We hit a red light. I reached over, hit park, and slammed the shift into neutral. The car lurched, horn blaring as the driver cursed. I shoved my shoulder into the door, hard enough to break the cheap lock casing. It popped open, and I tumbled out, scraping my elbow on the curb. I sprinted toward a convenience store across the intersection, yelling for help. The car squealed away. Police reviewed the CCTV later. The plates were stolen. The car was reported missing 3 days earlier in another state. They said these scams were spreading. Someone lures a date into a shared ride, sends a fake text screen, and the driver isn't a driver at all. Most victims lose money or belongings. Some just don't report back. Her profile disappeared that night, deleted within the hour. I still get uneasy every time a car slows beside me at night. It's not paranoia, it's memory. If you ever order a ride, check the plate, check the app, and never trust a stranger's shortcut. Share this video. You might save someone from getting in the wrong car tonight. We met on a hiking app, not even a traditional dating one. She was into photography, said she liked exploring old trails. We grabbed coffee first. Normal conversation, normal laughter. The next weekend we went hiking. She took a lot of pictures, mostly of scenery, but once or twice I noticed her camera linger on my car. I brushed it off. A few days later, my phone buzzed while I was driving home from work. Unknown, AirTag detected moving with you. I'd seen news about stalkers using those devices, but I figured maybe someone nearby left one in a rideshare. I tapped play sound. Nothing. The alert kept flashing every few miles. I searched under seats. Glove box. Nothing. The next day, same alert. I texted her jokingly. "You didn't hide an AirTag on me, did you?" She replied instantly. "Why, did it find you?" No emoji, no laugh, just that line. My chest went tight. I asked where she was. She said, "Don't worry, I'm not far." I pulled into a grocery lot, locked the doors, and kept scrolling through my phone. The signal still said, "Device nearby." I hit play sound again and turned off the engine. Silence. Then the faintest chirp from somewhere behind the dashboard. I couldn't get to it. I drove straight to the police station. They found it taped under my rear air vent. It was paired to an Apple ID created 2 days earlier under a fake email. The officer asked if I knew anyone who'd recently been inside my car. Only her. They contacted her. Her number was disconnected by that evening. Her socials vanished. 2 weeks later, another AirTag alert popped up. Same message. New serial number. The officer said whoever it was might be using different IDs each time. Now I keep a scanner app that picks up Bluetooth beacons. I check my car every morning. The scariest part wasn't the device. It was realizing how small the gap is between "we had fun" and "I know exactly where you sleep." If you ever see that AirTag alert, don't ignore it. Search until you find it. Someone could be following your every move right now. Comment "found one" if this has ever happened to you, and tag a friend who needs to check their car tonight. I never even met her. We matched, exchanged a few messages, and she asked for my Instagram. Harmless, right? I gave it to her. Within a minute, she was liking pictures from 2 years back. Old ones of me, my dog, my apartment balcony. She messaged, "You live on Elm, right?" I recognized the streetlight. My stomach dropped. The photo was from my balcony at sunset. No address visible, but apparently recognizable if you knew the area. I didn't reply. That night, my dog barked non-stop at the window. I looked outside. Empty street. The next morning, a white envelope sat under my wiper. Inside was a printed screenshot of my own profile, with "nice view," written in red marker. I drove straight to work, convinced it was a prank. I blocked her, switched accounts, even changed my profile photo. 2 nights later, my Ring camera caught motion, 1:14 a.m. A woman's outline near my driveway, hoodie up, holding her phone flashlight toward my door. The footage was grainy, but I recognized the same manicure from her profile pictures. She walked up to the camera, whispered something too quiet to catch, and left. Police came, reviewed the footage, said they'd patrol the block. A week passed, no sign of her. Then my coworker sent me a link. Someone on Reddit had posted about a woman catfishing local men to get photos of their apartments. The post had screenshots. Same username. She'd been contacting guys, asking for selfies, by the window, pretending to compare sunset views, then stalking them offline. The scariest part? She wasn't caught. She just stopped posting. People speculated she'd moved cities. I deleted every trace of location tags from my feed and blacked out the skyline from all my old pictures. Sometimes at night, my dog still growls at the same corner of the window. There's nothing there. But every time the streetlight flickers, I wonder if she's still nearby, just waiting for another match. Never share your view, your street, or your balcony online. Photos reveal more than faces. They reveal coordinates. Drop a comment if you've ever gotten a weird message that felt too specific. Someone else might need the warning.
I used to think catfishing was a short con. A few weeks of sweet talk, a request for money, and then the block. What I ran into wasn't a short con. It learned my routine, mapped my friends, copied my voice, and tried to walk into my real life wearing my name. This started in late 2022 when I was living alone in Richmond. I worked hybrid, 3 days at the office, 2 at home. And like most people who just crawled out of lockdown, I was lonely in a way that makes you think you can spot sincerity through a screen. Her name, at least on the app, was Riley. Brown hair, crooked smile, those caught off-guard photos that look spontaneous but are carefully staged. She liked horror movies, old diners, and street photography. The bio felt human, not too clever, not too clean. We matched on a Tuesday night. She messaged first, "Your dog in picture 3 looks like he hates being photographed." That was accurate. I told her he's suspicious of anything that steals attention. She volleyed back with a story about her aunt's cat bullying every guest. It was easy, effortless, the kind of chat that runs long before you notice the timestamp. By Thursday, we'd moved to text. By Saturday, we were swapping playlists. She never pushed for video. She said she hated how she looked on camera, and I didn't press. I told myself there are plenty of shy people who are real. That's true, but shy isn't the same as careful. Looking back, there were breadcrumbs. She asked about my neighborhood, not exactly where I lived, just which side of the park. She asked where I worked, what area of town. She asked the name of my dog. I told her. She laughed and said she loved the way old man names sound on small animals. Small questions, harmless. But if you string small questions together, you get a person's outline. The first time she called, I was washing dishes. Unknown number. The voice was warm, textured, a smile tucked inside it. "I figured we should hear each other before we meet," she said. We talked for 40 minutes about nothing. Terrible customer service, the diner we both swore had the best pie, the weird comfort of rainy Sundays. When we hung up, I thought, finally, a normal person. 2 weeks in, she canceled our first meet. "Work crisis," she texted. "Can we do tomorrow?" Tomorrow became next week. Next week became, "I'm sick, I don't want to get you sick." It was never dramatic, it was annoyingly plausible. And it was sticky, because every time I thought about walking away, she dropped something specific, a taste, a memory, some tiny detail that matched mine and made my brain exhale. That's how long cons work, not with fireworks, with rhythm. I didn't know that behind the rhythm, someone was taking notes. Three small things happened in the same week. One, my Instagram pinged me with "Is this you?" from a login attempt 2 cities over. I changed my password and moved on. Two, a coworker DM'd me a profile with my photos, a clone account that had already followed a dozen of my friends. It was mean flawless. Same captions, same old shots buried deep on my timeline, same bio, except a single emoji. I reported it. It vanished within the day. Three, a DoorDash driver texted me, "Hi, I'm outside with your order." I hadn't ordered anything. When I stepped into the hall, there was a small paper bag on the floor, already cooling. I didn't touch it. My stomach dropped for no logical reason. I went back inside and locked the deadbolt. The driver was gone. I texted Riley, "Weird day. Want to hear something strange?" She replied immediately, "Always." I told her about the clone account. Her answer was a shrug in text form. "People are wild." Then she pivoted, "Rain check on tonight." My boss dumped a deadline on me. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. That same night, 2:31 a.m., my phone lit up with "carrier service, SIM change requested." I hadn't requested anything. I called my mobile carrier, half asleep, heart pounding. The rep said someone had tried to port my number to a different SIM. "Looks like they had your name and last four of your SSN," she said, just like she was reading the weather. We blocked it. "I'm adding a port-out freeze and a full account PIN. Do you want us to note a no SIM change without in-store ID?" "Yes, all of it. Now." I couldn't sleep after that. Every shadow in my apartment looked like a decision I didn't make. The next morning, I told Riley I needed a day. She said she understood and then sent a photo of coffee and a notebook. "My office this morning." The image felt generic. Nothing in it said where she was. No caption with a cafe tag. I asked which shop. She said, "You'd never guess." I didn't answer. Something in me was cooling from lonely to watchful. 2 days later, we finally picked a plan. Saturday, late morning. A diner between us that we'd both named weeks earlier. The kind with the big windows and the burnt coffee. She sent a smile emoji and wrote, "Don't bail. I'll look for the guy who orders pie at 11 a.m. The morning came gray and soft. I got there 10 minutes early because anxious men get places early. I sat where I could see both doors. I didn't order pie. At 11:09, my phone buzzed, Riley calling. I answered and said, "Are you outside?" "Inside," she said, voice right in my ear, "by the register." "You walked past me. I hadn't walked anywhere. I'd been seated since 10:53. I turned, scanned the register. 2 teens, a guy paying cash, a waitress with a ring of keys. "I don't see you," I said. "What are you wearing?" "Blue sweater," she said, waves at you. No one waved, no one wore blue. "Okay," I said. I kept my voice steady. "Come to the booth with the cactus sugar shaker." Silence. Then, I just got called into something. "Can we reschedule?" I let the silence stretch. Then I hung up. A minute later, a text came, not from Riley, but from a brand new number. "You're fun to watch when you're confused." I felt my legs go hollow. I paid for coffee I hadn't touched and walked out the front door without changing my pace. I didn't look back. I didn't go straight home. I went 3 blocks over to a branch of my bank and asked for a manager. I'd never used the phrase account takeover out loud. It felt like something that happened to people who clicked bad links. The manager didn't blink. "Let's lock everything down," she said, and she walked me through a sequence that still sounds like a prayer when I say it to friends. Freeze credit, all 3 bureaus. Remove phone numbers as 2-factor authentication, reset options wherever possible. Switch SMS 2-factor to an authenticator app, or, if you can manage it, a hardware key. Kill recovery emails that were ever used on public Wi-Fi. Alias your emails, 1 clean address per critical account. Audit third-party logins. Those login with Google/Facebook/Apple connections most of us forget. Rotate every password with a generator and store them in a manager with a physical device lock. Add a verbal passphrase to your bank and carrier that only you would say, Not a mother's maiden name, not a pet's name, not anything scraped from social posts. Close and reissue cards even if you don't see fraud yet. Predators love to wait until you relax. It took 2 hours. When we finished, my phone buzzed with a barrage of "your password was changed" emails. Mine, initiated by me, but the flood made me feel like I was scrambling up a hill with something behind me. I went home the long way. At my door, a small plastic envelope waited. No return address. Inside, a cheap NFC security tag, the kind companies give out to employees to tap a door, and a note that said, "Let me in." No punctuation. I called the non-emergency line and filed a report. Saying it out loud made my voice shake. The operator didn't dismiss me. She told me a detective would call and that if anything escalated, anyone at the door, any threats, call 911. That night, I slept with the TV on because silence felt like a door cracked in the dark. The detective called the next day. I gave him everything: Riley's numbers, screenshots, call times, the SIM swap attempt record, the photo of the NFC tag. He asked about old data breaches. Had my email or phone been caught in any? Yes, years ago, an old forum. He asked if I'd ever posted my dog's name on public social media. Yes. If my workplace bio had any dates. Yes. And if my LinkedIn listed my city. Yes. Each yes felt like a door I'd left unlatched without knowing. He said something I won't forget. Long cons are collaborative. One person builds trust. Another does the scraping. Another runs the ops. SIM swap, password resets, impersonation. When you ask for a video call, they punt. When you ask to meet, they stall. Meanwhile, they're building a version of you they can log into. That afternoon, my best friend texted, "Dude, why did you ask me for my email password?" I hadn't. A minute later, "And why did you ask Mom for her bank's last four?" I called him. He sent screenshots. A new number with my name and my profile photo had texted him saying the classic, "Locked out. Can you help? Need to confirm a few things for support." He hadn't answered. He knew me too well. But that meant the long con had moved from me to my circle. Real world next. That evening, a man in a neon vest rang my bell and held up a tablet through the glass. "Building maintenance," he said. "Water check, 10 minutes. My building doesn't send maintenance at night. I yelled through the door that I'd call the office. He smiled without stepping closer and said, "All good. Tomorrow then." He left without turning his back, like a cat deciding not to pounce yet. I watched him disappear around the stairwell and dialed my landlord. Nobody had been sent to my unit. I forwarded the camera still to the detective. He replied, "Do not open the door to anyone you didn't schedule. If he returns, call 911. I texted Riley, "This ends now." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared. Then, "Meet me tomorrow. Noon, public, corner of Broad and 4th, if you're brave." Brave is a word people use when they want you to be stupid. I replied, "Police across from there. Your call." She sent a single heart emoji. It felt like a knife. I didn't go alone. I told the detective. He said, "Don't engage. If someone approaches you, step into the precinct. If they follow, you'll have witnesses. If not, we'll review cameras." I told a coworker to stand across the street with his phone rolling. He's the kind of friend who shows up with a thermos and a calm face that makes you feel like the world isn't on fire. The corner at noon was busy enough to make me feel half safe, half exposed. Delivery bikes, suits, a woman dragging a tiny dog that refused to walk. I stood where the camera on the precinct wall saw everything. At 12:06, a woman stopped 10 feet from me and lifted a phone like she was checking messages. She wore a blue sweater. Her hair matched the photos. The tattoo wrapped the correct arm. She didn't look up. She didn't smile. "Riley," I said. Not loud, not soft, just enough. She glanced up. Her face clocked me the way you clock a stranger on a train. Impersonal, quick. Then she tapped her phone and started walking past me, not to me. Directly behind her, a man I hadn't noticed shifted his stance and angled his body to keep my left side in frame. Photographer. Not for a wedding, for proof of life. I pivoted and said, loud enough for the street, "Officer?" Then I pointed at the precinct door. The woman in blue didn't break stride. The man lowered his phone a fraction and faded into foot traffic like he'd practiced. 2 officers stepped out. I told them, "That's her," or her handler, "That's him." They didn't chase. They asked me to step inside and write it down. Cameras see better than adrenaline does. We watched the feed in a back room. The woman's face was clear enough. The man's was not. The detective said, "She might be a runner, the face they use to prove to other people you exist. Or she's the first date version. Either way, you did the right thing." I felt stupid and relieved at the same time. Stupid because I'd let a stranger rent space in my head. Relieved because daylight makes even the worst stories hold still for a second. Outside, my coworker texted me a still from his video, me pointing to the precinct, the blue sweater half turned away, the man's phone tilted down like he'd been caught stealing fruit. He captioned it, "You were never alone." That night, I got one more message from an unknown number. This could have been easier. I forwarded it. I blocked it. I turned my phone off and put it in a drawer like a hot pan I needed to stop touching. The next week was administrative pain, replacing numbers on accounts that still wanted SMS codes, reproving my identity to services that act like you're the stranger, waiting on new cards, learning how many places had my old phone burned into their bones. The detective called to say the carrier logs confirmed multiple failed SIM swap attempts after my port freeze, like someone was pushing a door that no longer opened. The precinct pulled a partial plate on a car that passed the corner twice during the meeting time. It wasn't enough to act on. "They move fast," he said, "but the harder you are to use, the sooner they move on." I changed my phone number, not because I thought it would stop a determined person, because starting clean felt like rinsing smoke out of a room. 3 months later, a friend sent me a link to a brand new account on a different app with my first name, my city, and a photo I hated of me at a barbecue. Unflattering and real, which is what made it dangerous. The bio read, "Pie at 11." That's when I realized the long con wasn't trying to be me. It was trying to summon another me. Another lonely man who thought matching tastes meant matching intentions. I reported it. The app removed it within the hour. The victory felt small and enormous at the same time. If you're hearing this and thinking, "I'd never fall for a months-long chat with no meat," you're probably right. You might bail sooner. But the point of a long con isn't your money. It's your surface area, the number of places your life can be pressed. Here's what I wish someone had drilled into me before Riley texted hello. Never anchor your identity to your phone number. Use an authenticator app or hardware key for 2-factor authentication. Add a carrier port-out freeze and a SIM change lock with an in-store ID requirement. Compartmentalize email. One private address for banking, one for shopping, one for social. If a breach hits, you don't lose the whole map. Kill SMS recovery wherever possible. Email-only resets are slower and less convenient. That's the point. Slow beats stolen. Scrub your public breadcrumbs. City is fine. Street is not. Dog's name is cute. It's also an answer to security questions. Reverse image search your own photos and theirs. If her selfies live on a Pinterest board in a language you don't speak, you're not dating her. Never accept a doorstep delivery you didn't order. It's not generosity. It's proof of address. If a maintenance worker arrives unscheduled, you don't open the door. Call the office. If they're legit, they'll return with proof. If a meet feels off, narrate out loud and step into the nearest camera's view. Predators prefer quiet corners. Learn where the bright places are. Tell your people. If someone texts your mom pretending to be you, you want her to hear your voice in her head saying, "I would never ask for that." I still use apps, but I treat them like walking at night. I watch the reflections in windows. I assume the street I'm on is not empty even if I don't see anyone. I trust, but I notarize the trust with daylight and eye contact and the sound of a chair scraping on tile. Sometimes I wonder who Riley actually was. Maybe just a voice in a rented room. Maybe 3 voices on rotation. Maybe a woman in a blue sweater who met 100 other men at 100 other corners and told herself she wasn't hurting anyone because she never touched them. I know this much. The con ended not because they got bored of me, but because I stopped being useful. When my number wouldn't port, when my accounts required a key they didn't own, when the precinct camera saw their faces, however briefly, the path of least resistance bent away from me. That's all safety really is. Resistance, not a wall. A maze. Make yourself a maze. The last text I ever got from a number I associate with Riley came at 3:03 a.m. on a Tuesday. One word. Boo. I didn't reply. I didn't block it either. I let it sit there like a dead leaf in the corner of a room you don't enter anymore. I changed my locks. I bought a hardware key. I stopped using my dog's name on the internet. And when a new match asks if I like diner pie at 11 a.m., I say yes. But we pick the diner together. We choose the table under the camera, and I watch the door unlock before I walk through. If that long con story made your stomach drop, tap like. It helps this reach someone before they answer the wrong hello.